Are you already networking and all that effort is not translating into results? Does everyone seem to be getting further ahead even though you're just as smart? Do you have great ideas, but no one seems to be listening to them? If any of these situations resonate with you, pay attention. Even if you're already a world class connector or networker, today's interview will definitely help you take it up to the next level. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Business Masters Live. The title of today's interview is Seven Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. My name is Martin Meisenheimer. Today I'm talking with networking and connecting expert Michelle Tillis Lederman about connecting mistakes that stop most introverted entrepreneurs dead in their tracks, really even before they get started. Welcome, Michelle Tillis Lederman.
Thanks for having me on, Martin.
I'm thrilled to have you here. Michelle is one of Forbes' top 25 networking experts. She's author of 4 books, including internationally known The 11 Laws of Likability, which I happen to have right here. And her latest is The Connector's Advantage. Michelle's a connector, creator, and CEO of Executive Essentials, which provides customized communications and leadership programs for Fortune 500s, nonprofits, universities, government clients. And she's a former finance executive and NYU professor. Michelle's also a regular in many media outlets, including NBC, CBS, Fox, NPR, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, CNBC, and many others. Michelle's known for helping people to work better together and take advantage of their individual impact. Michelle, welcome to the show. Really thrilled to have you here. It's a real pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
All right. Well, I thought we'll just jump right in. I thought my first set of questions, I'd like to get a little bit more about your background and how you got down this path that you're on now to becoming an expert on connecting and networking in the business context. And then we'll get into some of the specifics around mistakes that people commonly make. And I really definitely want to talk about the what you have identified as the keys, especially for introverts when it comes to networking. So can you start by just telling us a little bit more about yourself in terms of how you got started in this path?
I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself and how I got started in this path because they're not the same thing. I am a travel junkie. I have been to 70 countries. I love animals. I'm a little bit of an adrenaline junkie as well. My husband jumped out of a plane with me on our honeymoon, but that took a little convincing. I've swam with sharks and gone down, rock climbing mountains. I have, you name it, I'll try it with the exception of bungee jumping. And I share all of that with you because that's where the connection forms, is on some of that type of information. And if there's any scuba divers out there, done that too. In terms of my journey, no.
I am, yeah.
Oh yeah. See, now we have things to talk about, best dive sites, things like that. So the journey is not as interesting. I am a recovering CPA. I spent 10 years in the finance world. And while there, I was the only woman on the trading floor. I was the only woman on a global venture capital team. And I had people sitting across from me who wanted my investment, my money from the bank. And they didn't know how to pitch. They didn't know how to relationship build. They didn't pay attention to body language to understand where I was in the conversation. And I really just wanted to reach across the desk and say, can I teach you how to do this? And that's really how it started. And I started a company called Executive Essentials back in 2004. And originally all my clients were financial services firms. And it was really about teaching people how to communicate, to connect, and with confidence and with clarity. And it evolved and the books came from there. And that's the 2-second version of my story.
That's interesting. So is this all just stuff that comes natural to you, or did you have did you have success initially in this area, or is this something that you stumbled quite a bit and then you finally put it together and figured out how to do this better for yourself first?
It's a great question. And the truth is, I always say that I wrote my first book, The 11 Laws of Likability, because I didn't think I was very likable. And I was really curious as to why I was having such a polarizing effect. People loved me or they hated me. And there wasn't a lot of in between. And I wasn't sure what it was I was doing to cause such a strong response.
Wow.
And so that's where the research started, was to understand this concept of likability and how connections form and what we can do to enable people to see what is likable about us. Because I believe we are all likable, but I also believe you can't make anybody like you. So it's that enabling, it's that making sure you're bringing the right things in that moment.
Sounds almost like dating, like you can't make someone like you.
No, right?
So the best you can do is work on yourself and become a better human, and maybe that's a more attractive person to be. Is that what you're getting at in a way? Or?
Yes and no. So you are fabulous. And I always say that you have all the things that you need. It's just understanding. It's understanding about how you and I might connect will be differently than how you and somebody else will connect, and what you connect about. Right? You and I can have a conversation about scuba diving now, but I can't have that conversation with everybody. So it's about understanding where our connection lies, and that when we think about relationship networking, which is really what I talk about, it's not about me, it's not about you. It's about our exchange and our interaction. And I didn't stumble upon this, and I'm not sure it's a natural gift either. I think I had some bumps along the road for sure. I think I always had a bit of a chip on my shoulder. And I was the person who was like, give me your manager on the phone and ready for the fight. And, you know, that old saying, you get more bees with honey than with vinegar. I mean, it's there for a reason.
Yeah.
And what I realized is that if you make people want to say yes, then you are more likely to get the yes. But they have to want to make a yes for you, and it's you that causes that. People make decisions based on the person, not the product and not the price. It's the person.
Right. So tell us a little bit more about specifically, how does one get somebody to want to say yes to you? Is that, and obviously you're going to tell us that that's different than making them like you, right? Not the same.
You know, I think they're probably interrelated. I never really thought about the differentiation between the two, but let me give you a story.
Okay.
So I don't know how many years ago it was at this point. The laptop's falling apart, so it's quite a while. But my birthday is coming up. It's right by the holidays, and they have a lot of really strict return policies right around the holidays. And I had bought a laptop for my birthday, and the deadline to return things, my December 20th birthday, was January 15th. You know, it never even occurred to me that I wouldn't have at least 30 days to return something.
Sure.
And so on January 18th, when I went to Best Buy to say, hey, I want to return this laptop, what response do you think I got was, sorry, you're 3 days past the expiration. So you have a choice, right? Anybody out there in the moment has a choice. You can accept that answer. I'm somebody who likes to get to yes. But my choice was, I could have, been like, well, that's not okay, and cause a fight and get upset. Nobody wants to say yes to that person. And so instead I said, I know that's the rule. I said, but is there anybody who has any magic powers that could, make a different decision for me? And they said, well, I can get my manager. I said, that would be wonderful. I said, but when you do, could you just tell him I was nice? And right. So when the manager comes, a lot of times, and I've asked for managers many places, and they always are prepared for somebody to complain. And half the time I'm there to say that somebody did a great job. And then you see their whole body relax, like, oh, okay. You're saying something nice to me.
Yeah. So
managing that expectation of the communication coming in really helps for them to approach you in a way that's open. So that's the first thing I did. And then I said, so he's like, so I hear you want to return something and it's past the date. I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you can. I said, I know. I said, but what if I could? I said, do you have the magic powers? I said, but here's the thing. I don't really want to return it. I want a new one. I want to exchange one. So I'm still buying one. And then I'm like, and by the way, did I mention I also need a new cell phone?
Wow. That's
and we just had some fun, and I made him laugh.
Yeah.
And of course, the moral of the story I wouldn't tell if it was a different ending. I was able to exchange the laptop. Everybody was happy. Uh, and I came back a few weeks later and I saw the manager that I talked to. I'm like, guess what? I'm getting my cell phone.
That's brilliant. So there's a lot that just went on right there. So if we back up to the point where you're unhappy and you've kind of run up against the wall. So first thing you did is in asking for speaking to the manager, you already laid the groundwork of, creating a positive expectation, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is when you get in front of that manager now, it's compliment time, right? Is that the next step?
It's not necessarily about compliment. It is. It's about how you ask. And one of the things I teach in my latest book is how to ask for something without putting a relationship at risk. Asking is really hard, and we're really intimidated by the ask because we don't want the rejection. We don't want the no. The truth is, nobody wants to say no either. And so if we can ask in a way that makes it, easier for them to either get to yes or get to no, because sometimes a no now is a yes later, and that's okay. Not for my computer, but for other things. So it isn't about complimenting them. It is about setting the expectation of the experience. It is about asking in a way that puts the power in their hands, right? I'm not demanding it of you. I'm asking, and I know that you have this choice that you can make.
Right.
And sometimes they don't even realize they have that power.
You're letting them know that you're letting them know that they have the option.
It's their decision.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll even say something like, I know you don't have to, right? Like, I understand that if you choose to do this, it's your choice.
Yeah. So you're giving them a way out. You're reducing any pressure that might have been there. You're just releasing. It's like a release valve kind of thing. Like, oh, you don't have to do anything, but I know you can. And what would it be like if you could? Is that? Yeah. I love that.
I'm like, would you like to make my day? Right? Nice. Little things like that. And I have tons of them, and it's based on the moment and the situation. I've taught my husband how to get out of late fees with credit cards. Nice. And he calls up, and doesn't matter who's on the other end of the line, man or woman, they're always going to laugh at this statement. Please help me get out of trouble with my wife.
That's great.
Right?
Yeah.
As soon as you make somebody laugh, they're like, all right, let me see how I can help you.
Well, you're instantly in rapport, right?
Yeah. And that is the perfect word for it. And that's what it's all about. Connection starts with rapport. Yes starts with rapport.
Yeah.
And rapport is actually something that introverts can do really, really well because they are natural born listeners. And of course, we all like to talk.
Yeah.
Right? And we feel valued when we're listened to. So as an introvert, bringing that skill is a strength, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. And introverts are better in the one-on-one. Right? That's where they're in their comfort zone. But that's also where connection forms. So forget about those images of the extrovert, life of the party, manipulating the crowd and working the room. That's not where connection forms. Memories might form there, but not connection. Right? And a third advantage that all introverts bring to the table is that they are not off-putting, right? They are not overpowering. Mm-hmm. There is a reserve that is more natural because they are more observant. They're more internally processing information. They're great at probing. There's a fourth skill there. And so I've been told, you might have guessed, I'm a little bit of an extrovert.
No.
And I've been told that I can be a little bit much, right? And so it's understanding where your strengths are and how to flex. So I don't come on super strong to everybody because it's going to be like, oh, no, right? Let me back away from that one. And that's what I mean by we're not changing who we are. And that's why I kind of wanted to make that tweak to what you said earlier. It's not changing who you are. It's flexing in the moment. It's temporarily, momentarily adjusting your style to accommodate an interaction with somebody else.
It seems to me like this would be the perfect place to, either dial it up, dial it back with matching and mirroring, and that sort of thing.
I see you're pulling things right out of the first book.
Yeah.
So for those who might not be familiar with the matching and mirroring, it's actually a natural phenomenon. And you have to be careful if you force it because it can come off as inauthentic. The matching and mirroring phenomenon is that when we are connected and connecting, we tend to start to adapt to each other's style, whether it's body language, vocal pace, vocal volume. I've even been known to pick up accents accidentally. I try not to do it because it almost feels obnoxious, but sometimes it just happens, right? Because you just feel so in tune with somebody.
Right. The other word that jumps out at me when I listen to how you approach these kinds of situations is, it seems like everything that you're doing is coming from a place of respect for the other person, and there again, I think that's going to go a long way to bringing you into rapport fairly quickly, especially in a situation where you're trying to lodge a complaint and ask for something that you want, and the person on the other end is probably they're probably not used to having that sort of an approach, so it's got to be really refreshing right from the get-go, and then they have to be more receptive to whatever it is that you're asking.
Well, I love the word respect, and I think that's the foundation of everything and every interaction. I think that really bolsters up the first mindset in the connector's advantage, which is to be open and accepting. Because we're being open to what the other person is bringing to us, accepting of them, as well as open and accepting of ourselves, because we need to do both. And when you have that openness and you bring yourself to a conversation, that authenticity, right, you enable connection. Because if we start to be something we're not, that's when we're like, it seems a little greasy.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And so this seems like the perfect segue, because I did want to get into those mindsets that you speak about. So that's number one. And then where do you go from there?
So there's 7 mindsets to being a connector. And so let me just back up 1 second. For those who have heard this phrase connector, what I want you to think about when you think of this word is just relationship first, right? Whatever it is you are doing, business, personal, all your interactions, the prioritization of the relationship in those interactions, that's the mindset of a connector, okay? And when you are a connector, your results, whatever it is you're working on, whether it's a new job, a new referral, a new client, a promotion, your health and happiness, I have statistics that even back up those, you are going to get there faster, easier, and better as a connector. So in order to be this thing we call a connector, right? Because networking might be something that you do, but a connector, that's who you are. There's 7 mindsets we talked about. So we talked about open and accepting. The second is to have a clear vision. Connectors trust. They come from a place of abundance. They are social and curious. They are conscientious, and they have a generous spirit. And they're not linear. These are mindsets that enable each other, right? So you need a mindset of abundance in order to be able to access your generous spirit, right?
Yeah.
They play off of each other.
Wow.
You're like, now what?
This is great stuff. This is really powerful. Let's go to I want to hear what you have to say about the vision, how that comes into play with connecting. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So when you are in an interaction with somebody, I'm going to give you 2 tips, and it's actually going to cover the first 2 mindsets. So in any interaction that you're in, I want you to think about asking a question that helps you understand what that person needs or what that person's working on. So Who would you like to connect with? Or what are you focused on right now? Or how can I help you? Any of those questions are great. That's the idea of bringing information in to being able to have a generous spirit to think about how you can add value to them. Now, everyone who's listening to this is also going to ask the same question in reverse. So to have a clear vision, you have to have an answer to that question. Somebody's going to ask you what you're working on, how what help you might need. You need to have a clear vision of what you are working on in order to actually get the advantage of those faster, easier, better results. Now, that clear vision doesn't have to be the 10-year vision. It doesn't have to be, get me a job. It could be simply like, I've been looking to connect with people in this industry. It might, I could say, oh, I'm trying to make my book a bestseller. Or it could simply be, I'm trying to get another 100 reviews of my book, honest reviews, right? So you can decide how big or small that thing you're working on is, right? Or the person you want to connect with is. I actually once, when I was speaking, for our alma mater, I was speaking for a Lehigh Wall Street council, and I put out there that I wanted to meet Michelle Obama. That's a pretty big ask.
Yeah.
Would you believe it? I got to her chief of staff on the phone.
Nice.
And I got my veterans book in front of her because I knew she had a program for veterans and I had a free resource.
Awesome.
Never got to talk to her, but I got close.
I know, that's great.
So the clear vision, that's actually what we were talking about before about ask, right? You don't get what you don't ask for. If you ask, you immediately increase your odds of a yes. And so I talk about 4 or 5 different types of asks: the opt-out, the non, the convenient, the make it easy. There's all different types of ways that we can make an ask of somebody else so that we don't put the relationship at risk. So I mentioned I was an animal lover. Can you hear the dog barking?
Yeah. That's great. Does he or she ever join you?
I have the office door closed, but yes, she does. She's popped into many a Zoom call.
It's happened before where I'm interviewing someone and then their dog hops up in their lap, and that's perfectly fine. So if that happens, no worries. That's great. So great. We were talking a little bit before we came on live, and we were talking about connecting in our current situation with the virus, and most of us being at home most of the time, and so forth and so on. So tell us a little bit more about what you would advise specifically on this new reality that we're in right now.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're in hard times, but we're also in times that have a lot of opportunity in terms of connection. So there's two places to take this. One is the existing connections you have. So a lot of times, especially introverts will say, I don't have a reason to reach out. I don't want to bother them.
Yeah.
This is a perfect time where we feel so disconnected that people are welcoming those little moments of connection. I have been more in contact with my college friends, my business school friends. I mean,
yeah.
And yes, a lot of it's on the computer, but we've also been managed to go to a park and 6 feet apart, be physically present, or, in somebody's backyard. So for the existing connections, you have a really great built-in excuse to just say, hey, I was thinking about you. I see the pandemic cases are really high in your area, or, I know your business is really impacted by this, or, right? So there's a bunch of excuses within what's going on right now, or it's even just the holidays. So the reach out reason is kind of eliminated.
Yeah.
And so we have a little extra time on our hands. We're not commuting anymore. People are getting back between 30 and 120 minutes a day.
Mm-hmm.
What if you just took 10 of those minutes every day to send an email or 2 to people that you've been in touch with? You would stay and deepen and strengthen those connections that you already have so much more, right? Especially if somebody's having a hard time, then you can access your generous spirit and see how you can support them, what connections you can make for them. The bigger challenge in this time is actually the new connections. Yet there are so many people that are doing these events and these happy hours and these things and the associations that are finding new ways to do it. And are there ways for you to get involved in them? Are you able to influence, hey, let's make sure we have some breakouts so people can have that networking experience in the box, right?
Yeah.
So there are a lot of, and as well as social media. I mean, that's always been an easy entrance point. And that what I would say is think about all the places that you have connections. Like maybe there's a scuba diving club that we're both going to be in, right? And there's a LinkedIn group, or there's a Facebook group, or there's a group for that, right?
For everything, sure.
There's a group for everything. So look at a few of those people in the group, send a personalized note to connect, and then see if you can move it from online to offline. Mm-hmm. Phone, video, it doesn't matter. Begin the conversation. Even if it's just email, it's a little bit more one-to-one than via a platform.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what are the most common mistakes you see people making, either online, offline, when it comes to trying to be a connector, especially if they're new to it, or they just don't have a lot of experience?
There's a few that come to mind.
Sure.
The worst one is when somebody reaches out and tells you it would be like, I get these notes all the time. It would be to your benefit to get in touch with me. Or it's a little aggressive.
Yeah.
Or I get notes where it's requesting something and I haven't even met you. Like, I literally had people send me resumes or ask me for jobs or to help them get a job in like the first, will you connect to me on LinkedIn here, help me get a job? I don't know you. And it wasn't they were trying to hire me. There was no rapport, as you put it, established. There was no relationship investment, right, to be built. They didn't make me want to say yes, as we've been saying.
Right.
On the opposite end, not reaching out is probably the greatest mistake that anybody makes, is fearing them not connecting. You know how many invitations I've sent on LinkedIn that didn't get accepted? That's okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's okay. So just keep reaching out, because we will make and connect with the people that we have that connection with, that we want to be in a conversation with, and they don't have to be strategic. That's another mistake. People tend to be very strategic. I'm going to search on this criteria, and now I'm going to target you. Whereas if we go back to the way we started this conversation, I was very purposeful in sharing information about me and not my work. Because that's where people might go, animal lover, and they might go into my Facebook page and see an album called Me and the Animals and see that I've gotten to bottle feed a Siberian tiger. I've gotten to play with monkeys. I have one where I'm hugging a sloth, and they might want to have a conversation around that. And I'm going to talk about that all day long. And at some point we might get to work, or we might talk about other things, but now we already have a form of connection and we have something that connects us. Mm-hmm. So keeping our conversations to business is a mistake. People don't connect over what we do for a living. They connect over the way in which we live, our common values, our common experiences, our common passions, dreams, causes, people, places.
Yep. Right? Yeah.
So that's why I share that information.
So be human first, and then you can talk business.
Drop the mic. That was perfect. Just drop the mic.
I mean, this is really what I see too. So common, just every day. It's just you're constantly being, pitched by someone who hasn't even taken the first steps of building any kind of relationship, and it's just,
Yes. More mistakes are coming to mind. I'm like, oh, and there's this, and there's this. You know what? Another one.
Sure, go ahead.
Now you got me down on this road. I get a lot of requests to connect on LinkedIn. I love when they send the personal note, right? 99% of the time, I will say yes to a personal note. And unless I think that you are a fake profile or going to spam me, I will usually say yes to anybody who's connecting to me. But then I'm going to send them a note. So I will send a note and I will say, well, how do you know so-and-so? Or, oh, I see we both went to Lehigh, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And then they don't respond to me. So that's one mistake. Yeah. The other mistake is that they respond with their template.
Yeah.
This is what I do, and can I get on a call with you? Right? Yeah. Or what I've seen now is they're trying, but it's still obvious. They're doing so what got you into your business? And they're trying to start that conversation. but it feels like it's just, okay, they're looking for that door to try to get to a cell. And you can tell often by their description in their profile, if they're about to sell you, I help you do this. So, you become resistant. And one time somebody did that and I took the call and we actually had a conversation and, I wasn't a target for him, but I started giving him all this feedback and we had this other conversation. And so it's staying open, right? One of the mistakes is you think of everybody as just a lead.
Yeah.
And not a possibility, because a lot of times I will tell you that a lot of my clients have come from school field trips where I'm talking to one of the other moms of the kids on the 4th grade field trip down at Sandy Hook. And she's like, oh, we should have you come in to speak to our women's group. I'm like, sure, I'd love to, but I got to go chase these kids on the beach,
Yeah.
Those requests come in because of those relationships. My neighbor who asked me to come in to do something for when I moved here 10 years ago, her kids who were in high school, because she knew what I did. I wasn't building a relationship with my neighbor so I could get some work.
Right.
And I think if we think about building relationships because we want to, because we get to, because we enjoy the relationship, at some point it might happen. But we have to think long term. And that's another shift from business to anything, from it's about me or it's about them to it's about the exchange, and from short term to long term. Mm-hmm. Those are the 3 major shifts I talk about.
Makes complete sense. And what about also in terms of shifting mindsets around networking, that, the term connectivity or being a connector, it could mean that, you start looking at meeting new people instead of what can it do for me? What can I possibly do for them? But I hesitate to say that, because then people sometimes automatically think about their product, service, or opportunity, and how can that help this person? And then that launches them down that pitchy path. But what I really think that could help, and I'd like to hear you comment about this, is shifting the mindset and thinking of themselves as a connector of people with other people, instead of what can it do for me? Who do I know in my network that could be helped by this person, and vice versa? And just start thinking about connecting others with each other, and almost just being one step removed and an orchestrator of that process.
Absolutely. And when we talk about going up the connector spectrum, there's a spectrum, right? It starts out as a non-connector to an emerging, responsive, acting connector. What you're talking about is right at that acting connector level, but you could easily move up to the upper echelons, which is the niche connector, super connector, and global super connector. And by the way, somewhere in the notes, I have a quiz where people can take to figure out where they fall on that spectrum, and we'll figure out how to get that quiz to them, but it's on my website. But when we think about being more of taking the initiative, that's as we start to move up, right? We can respond. If people ask me for something, I'll do it. If people introduce me to somebody, I'll meet them. But that's a responsive connector. If you want to be an acting connector, you need to initiate. That's why one of the questions I said in the conversation is, who would you like to connect with? Who are the kinds of people you want to meet? Mm-hmm. That's a way for you to think about, how do I add value? And by the way, it helps you, because the law of familiarity, right? That last section of the book of, how do I stay in somebody's mind without getting in their face? Well, if you connect other people, you are the topic of conversation. How do you know Michelle? How do you know Michelle? Well, now Michelle's there without being there, and she stays front of mind.
Right.
So it's not, I'm not asking you to forfeit yourself. Having a generous spirit doesn't mean that you don't have goals and that you don't ask for things. Absolutely. But it's not quid pro quo, right? Right. It's to give without expectation and to understand that things happen in time.
Right. Respecting that there's steps involved. It's a process. And if you skip a step or two, then it becomes awkward and weird, and you create resistance. And
here's the thing. I have a philosophy of assume positive intent. And if we can assume positive intent, right? Yes, they might be trying to sell me something, but yes, it might actually be something I want, right? Um, how can we make the conversation so that it is in a way that doesn't feel, as I say, greasy, greasy,
Easy. Love
greasy.
it. Love it. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense. This has all been just so powerful. Great, great stuff. Is there anything that I haven't asked you, Michelle, that you think the audience really needs to know about this topic?
About it, but I
Uh,
could,
The big,
I can talk forever on this topic.
yeah,
What I would say is that anybody can be a connector. And whether you're naturally an introvert or extrovert, this, I know great extroverted connectors. I know great, phenomenal introverted connectors. When I did the research, I was actually very surprised to find that there wasn't a whole lot of differentiation between those that designated themselves as connectors and those who didn't in a lot of the elements and a lot of the mindsets. One thing did pop out though: the satisfaction that connectors get from purely making the connection for somebody else.
yeah,
So if you can just derive pleasure from connecting others, that is one of the things that was that stood out as a connector. But otherwise, all of these attributes, behaviors, characteristics of a connector, they can be learned. You can do this. It's really just a mindset and a shift and a habit. So don't count yourself out. Just start connecting.
anyone can learn this, right? I love it. I love it. The book is 7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence and Impact. The author is Michelle Tillis Lederman. Highly recommend any of her work. You definitely have to check it out. And so, Michelle, so people who want to learn more about what you do, where's the best place for them to go and find you?
I'm going to make one correction. You gave them the subtitle of the book. The title of the book is The Connector's Advantage:
Sorry.
7 Mindsets to Grow Your Influence Impact. Just in case they're Googling it,
Okay.
the main title is The Connector's Advantage. And I would love to connect with your audience. And the best place to start is my website, which is Michelle Tillis Lederman. You can see it spelled below you.com. And from there, you can get some free resources. I've got a video series. I give away free chapters of the book. You can go there and also find the quiz where you can figure out what level connector you are. I got a YouTube channel. I got a blog. LinkedIn is my favorite social media platform, but I'm on all of them. So I look forward to connecting with you, and just tell me where you found me. Send me a note.
Awesome. Once again, thank you, Michelle. Really appreciate you coming on here and sharing all your experience and wisdom. This is Business Masters Live. I'm Martin Meisenheimer. We'll see you next time.